Good relationship is when both adults are adults in the relationship. Oh, isn't that obvious? But actually, a lot of times it doesn't work that way. Either one or both parties would want to be the person that is pampered, taken care of, or they just be the vengeful child.
Hi guys, welcome to another podcast by Nespace, and in today's topic we'll be talking about optimizing life, refining relationship obstacles, and strengthening work performance with Ryan. So before anything, Ryan, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan. Nice to have all the listeners here today. So I'm a counselor for 5 years already in the industry, and I'm from Monash. And counseling has been a very rewarding and very unique experience for myself. Okay, there is definitely a solid reason behind choosing this career, but let's get to that later. So in this industry, my focus is actually working with couples, relationship, family, premarital, when having family, the kids as well, and to focus on their trauma and grief, the pain that they go through.
All right. So as you mentioned, there is a solid reason why you chose to dwell into counseling. Maybe can we look into that? Can we explore your solid reason?
Well, I don't want to sound very cringy or very self-justifying, but my childhood, growing up, has been really inspirational for me, especially a few characters that came along the way. My family, my dad's job requires the whole family to move with him because of business. So moving from place to place would mean that I have to change school frequently. And changing school means mingling with new crowds, making new friends. And when you go into a new environment, there will be cliques that's already there, and maybe new culture, new language. So mixing in wasn't easy, and with the frequent frequent happening of me needing to leave old friends and to make new ones, I sort of became a bit angry. I was a very angry and mischievous kid. So I tend to make a lot of trouble for the people around me. So as certain situations gets very complicated and tough, then I'm in deep trouble basically. And along the way, there will be peers, older adults, older peers. I was just lucky to meet people like that in different crossroads, and they sit down, they listen, they understood me, and they taught me through. So I imagine that I was pretty lucky. Not everyone would have people like that happen, to be in their life during moments of needs. So I imagine that not everyone has that, and I want to be the person to help people that actually seek out help, and that shows up at my doorstep, and I will support them the best that I can through their challenges and life difficulties.
So it's more of you wanted to give back what you've gotten. Is that
Yes.
so? All right. So since you mentioned that your industry is counseling and you specialize more towards relationship, it could be both couples, family, kids, in that setting, right?
Any relationship.
Any relationship, which means it also goes into colleagues, friends, is it?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I see. So basically in today's topic, we're gonna be covering or discussing on tips that are able to help a family or a couple to overcome the relationship issues and regulate their emotions so that they are able to move forward and focus mainly to build their career, or more like how a person can possess a high level of emotional intelligence and dissociate their personal issues from their job and career. So maybe we can look into the first question. So I think it's very common as a human being compared to AI. The one thing that differentiates a human being is that emotion. So when it comes to emotion, there is just all sort of emotion, and as a human being, how does that affect their work performance?
Emotion and work performance.
Yes.
Right. Just to check if I get that right. So, well, emotions is something that everyone has. That a majority of people has since young. The moment when you're an infant, you get attention, you get toys, you get something sweet, you smile, you laugh. There's enjoyment, there's pure bliss. And when you feel pain for the first time, you are worried, you're scared. Okay, and in the future, you might be even sad because you're disappointed. So emotions develop, it change, and it grows according to a person's developmental experiences. So when we talk about work, basically adults lah. Okay,
Yeah.
adults, probably older teenagers, young adults. Okay, that's the earliest that they start, and then it ends probably around 60 plus. If a person owns a company, owns a business, probably until old age. Okay, so work, career, emotions would be one of the main drivers. It can be good, it can be bad. Okay, now let's explore a little bit why. So emotions, motivation, drive. If the source of the emotion is strong, it drives a person really far. It gives them energy, it gives them inspiration, it helps them focus more with their development in their job, in their everyday work responsibility, and of course that will reflect a lot in their long-term career growth lah. But if let's say emotions is not managed well, okay, if let's say there's a lot of negative energy, okay, we won't really call negative emotions, because actually emotions, there's not really good and bad emotions. It just depends how the person define what emotions work for them or not. Okay, whether if it's productive or counterproductive. So with some counterproductive emotions at work, it will be a lot of like negative energy coming from them. Probably sadness, disappointment, anger that probably evolve into resentment. Okay, so this a lot would affect maybe the individual or even the people around them, causing obstacles, frictions, miscommunications, arguments, and if it gets even more serious, it could probably tear the whole company down. Okay, so there can be a lot of like serious consequences if emotions not kept in check, especially for those in higher management and in positions of power. So yes, emotions affects career and company businesses a lot.
So it's just that how the emotion is portrayed. Is it used as a motivational factor, or are we letting the emotion to overpower and becoming a negative energy? Is that right?
Yeah.
So if is there any way that we could change, or a person could change the negative energy to make it into a motivational factor?
Well, there's definitely ways to go about that. Most direct would be managing the expectations and, of course, adjusting a new point of perspective. But changing, adjusting, being flexible about it requires a lot of maturity in a person. Let's say age might not be a factor.
Yeah.
It might really depend on the person's maturity in their own experiences, in understanding their own emotional needs. Okay, how they balance things, how they manage, how they choose when to or when not to. So with this said, if let's say for individuals that doesn't understand themselves well, or they can't manage their emotions, being messy and outlash to people around them, they would actually need help. They can go for workshop training, they can share to people around them, ask seniors how to better cater to their emotional needs, and of course reach out to professionals like myself, counselors, to help explore certain root causes and to explore interventions, so that in the future emotions can help them more than it harms them.
Okay, so that's where we call emotional regulation, right? Emotional regulation is basically how you take the emotion
Precisely.
and regulate it in a way that it becomes a motivational factor.
Emotional intelligence as well. Knowing.
Right. Okay, so we talked about emotion as well as work performance, but let's talk about emotion in a relationship. So when it comes to relationship, I believe that emotion do play a role when it comes to conflict, leads to conflict. So conflict in a relationship, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, conflict, the first thing that comes to mind is, of course, that it is bad. No one likes conflict. Okay, but then if you really think about it, conflict is a type of communication. Okay, be it like verbal or even physical. Conflict is a sort of communication, probably a communication that's pent up for too long, mingled with frustration, anger, and then when the balloon bursts, when it can't take more, then it becomes a full-blown conflict, which can result in harm emotionally or physically for both parties or more.
Okay, so you mentioned that conflict is a bad thing, and then as you went about it, you said that frustration and all these things build up that could lead to conflict, right?
Conflict,
Mhm.
when people listen, the first impression
Mhm.
is negative, is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but conflict can open doors
Yeah.
for everyone to understand each other better, or
Mhm.
even to understand oneself better.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a person, there can be internal conflict as well.
Maybe can we talk about the internal conflict part? What do you mean by the internal conflict?
When a person is troubled with right and wrong, doing
Mm.
what's right, morality, meeting commitments, meeting promises.
Mm.
So sometimes a person can't have the best of both worlds.
Mm.
So that's when they have to make difficult decisions. That's when a person meets internal conflict.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not congruent, sometimes it happens as well,
Mm-hmm.
whereby they have to do what they don't want to. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
they are not congruent or say what they do not believe.
Okay. So moving on, as what you mentioned, conflict can either be, it can also open doors to understanding themselves or understanding the partner, right? So how can we, or how can people use conflict in order to make the relationship better rather than, breaking the relationship?
That's a really good question,
Mm-hmm.
because conflict happens to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we won't really say that we would purposely use it because
Yeah.
we hope that conflict doesn't happen in the first place.
Yeah.
But when it really does,
Mm.
first, both individuals, both adults, needs
Mm-hmm.
to be aware
Mm.
that there is a conflict going on.
Mm.
There's a clash of opinions, different
Mm.
perspective.
Mm.
Okay, there's friction.
Mm.
So when we are aware of that, we
Mhm.
acknowledge it,
Mm-hmm.
that it is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
When we acknowledge that it is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
it helps both individual to depersonalize it, so
Mm-hmm.
that the problem doesn't actually lie with each other, that hey, this is you, this is me,
Mm-hmm.
but actually it's just a problem and obstacle that both of us are experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like all obstacles and problems, there is always solutions.
Mm-hmm. So it goes the same for individual as well. How to understand that there's different perspective when you are having. I think just now you mentioned interpersonal conflict. Is that so?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So I think moving on to relationship. So as we talked about conflict in relationship or between couples, how do we define a good relationship?
Good relationship is when both adults are adults in the relationship. Yeah, that may sound really like cliche, or like, oh, isn't that obvious? But actually, a lot of times it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Either one or both parties would want to be the person that is pampered, taken care of, or they just be the vengeful child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they lash back, they take revenge. Oh, you hurt my feeling, I'm gonna hurt you back so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Joker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So both adults have to be adults in the relationship and take care of what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if they really care about the relationship and they prioritize it,
Yeah.
they focus on the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and they work on solutions.
Mm-hmm.
If let's say there's only one solution, okay, but if you have more options, it's better that way. So you brainstorm together, you work together, and if let's say the couple, the relationship is able to overcome the obstacle,
Mm-hmm.
the relationship grows.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of the achievement and success, but because they know that they can cooperate and
Yeah.
work together. That itself creates and promotes intimacy and trust.
I guess it's more towards a teamwork, right? And you're fighting the battle together and not fighting against each other.
Precisely.
Yeah. It is very common for people to argue in a relationship, and fights are common, and people tend to say that all relationship or even successful relationship tend to have fights and arguments. So after arguing with your loved one, it is normal for the emotion to be affected. So when it comes to that particular point, what is your suggestion to manage your emotion or that person's emotion in a way that it will not affect their daily life, and to be more specific, when they go back to work? So how to ensure that their emotion after an argument with their loved one doesn't affect their work?
Specifically work,
Yeah.
or everything else in life as well?
We'll cover work first, and then maybe we can cover everything else other than work. Where else would it be affecting? Yeah.
Well, this is actually really tricky. Okay, because even experts in studying emotions or managing themselves would trip once in a while, because emotions comes from something deep within, is personal. Okay, and when a person is affected personally, Okay, they will feel that they are betrayed. They will feel that they are hurt. They will feel a lot of negativity. They will feel vulnerable. So when a person feels like that, weak, throughout the whole day, they will be anxious. Okay, they may also be depressed, and they may be stressed out, or a combination of all of those. So in their normal daily routine, if they want it to run smoothly without having their emotions affect them, very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. But if they want to try and manage it, the suggestion or advice would be that they work out the emotion as soon as possible and not try to bury it. When a person starts burying emotions or like ignoring emotions, it doesn't go away. It's just packed in a small box tidily and then put in a corner and probably never hope to be seen again. And when the corner has more of these boxes, well, it's gonna take up the corner, maybe more corners, and the whole room will be eventually filled up with the boxes. So which boxes to unpack first? Okay, so the thing is to address and share as soon as possible to someone that they trust. Okay, if they have no one at all, reach out for professional support to unpack and process the emotion that they're going through because of certain life difficulties, even relationship ones. Okay, so that they can function smoothly throughout their daily life. But of course, certain things can't be avoided, like work, because as adults, we have commitments, we have responsibility to our duties and careers. Okay, there's something lifelong. So for things that are important, it cannot put on hold. Emotion follows. There is when emotional intelligence and emotional maturity comes. Okay, to be able to distinguish the location whereby certain part of ourselves should be present or not. So here I would like to introduce two terms. Okay, the professional front and of course your personal front. For adults that are really successful business owners, they're able to distinguish between the two. They're able to separate the two so that the emotions doesn't mess up the professional front. When they're professional, they're able to function, to smile, to perform, to charm, and of course to fulfill their responsibilities. And usually when individuals that are making decisions that are of positions of power, they have to be responsible not only to themselves but to a lot of people. So when that comes to mind, it means making a lot of important decisions. When people are making decisions, emotions may not benefit most of the time. Okay, when emotions is there, it clouds judgment. Sometimes it can be a point of conflict. Okay, maybe because of biasness, personal emotions, personal relationships that would affect decisions that would otherwise be really simple and really direct for the company's growth or for their own career progression. Okay, so when they're able to separate that, to keep it to their personal self, whatever that happens in the personal life, emotion stays there, and whatever emotions that comes from the professional front will be dealt with professionally and handled nicely through effective communication.
So in the end of the day, it goes back to communicating, right? So let's just say in the personal front, right? That's the term that you mentioned. So personal front, then you have a conflict over there or any argument, then you ensure that it is resolved over there and it is not brought to professional front. And then you mentioned that that's where if you're unable to identify or unpack those little tiny boxes, reach out to your loved ones or the people that you trust or professional. I just want to understand a little bit over here. What is the difference, or when can a person reach out to their friends or family, and when are they supposed to reach out to professional? How do they know what to do?
Well, it really depends on personal preference. If a person is having a bad time in their relationship, when a conflict or fight happens and there's bad, like dysfunctional emotions for them, moving forward, affecting their daily life, they can choose to share to people close to them first. Of course, the people that they trust, lah. So to process it, or to know that they have at least reached out and they will be available soonest. availability.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can't come out tonight, but maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when they know that there's going to be shared, going to be explored, going to be processed and unpacked,
Mm-hmm.
then it gives them a reassurance that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to bury a part of myself, because
Mm-hmm.
emotion is part of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes our inner self, when ignored, can become very ugly and very hard to handle, just like the inner child. When a child is not given attention, when we are not giving attention to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we are hurting
Yeah.
internally, we're hurting ourselves,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that is unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So when to reach out to professional, when one person feels that they can't talk to anyone around them at all,
Uh-huh.
some sensitive topics, worries of biasness, unfair treatment, maybe even opinions,
Mm-hmm.
judgment,
Mm-hmm.
they can reach out to professionals like myself,
Mm-hmm.
and we will be there unbiased,
Mm-hmm.
listening, and then of course ultimately exploring solutions together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Understand. So in the end of the day, it is would it be right to say that to validate your feelings, whatever you're feeling, and then look into solution. So that's where you seek out to your friends or family to discuss and brainstorm. And if that
Mhm.
is not that is not satisfactory, that's where you reach out to professional on a more neutral point of view. Is
Mhm.
that so?
More like less worries of
Mm.
any biasness and judgments,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because the relationship, the people around us may cause more obstacles
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, problems as well,
Mm-hmm.
because people talk.
Yeah.
So some individuals might worry that certain message gets sent across badly,
Mm-hmm.
or that certain misunderstanding may happen,
Mm-hmm.
and of course certain things that are too private to share,
Yeah.
so they have options.
Yeah. Okay. And just now you mentioned about the professional front and personal front, and you said that most of the time the leaders or those at the top management they are good at this, right? To dividing the professional front,
Successful ones.
successful ones, yeah, professional front and personal front. Um, is there any way to reach to that peak? Is that due to experience, or is it because of the age? What is the factor that plays a role?
All of those
Mm-hmm.
play a role.
Mm-hmm.
Maturity, age, of course, is not, uh like people that are younger
Mm-hmm.
may be really mature as well,
Mm-hmm.
from experience, maybe from their upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
and of course can be practiced, can be trained through
Mm-hmm.
workshops, through talks, seminars. Some they will learn directly from their coaches, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe their seniors, their
Mm-hmm.
previous ex-seniors
Mm-hmm.
that they inherited the position from.
Yeah.
So it requires communicating
Mm-hmm.
as well, learning.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So the key will be, or the key step is basically communication. And let's just say we talk about reaching to that peak, right?
Mhm.
What is the very first stepping stone in order to reach that peak?
Acknowledge that we are not perfect. Anything can go wrong. If it goes wrong in your relationship, normal. Everyone goes through it. It's not the end of the day. It's not the end of the world. It may feel that way, that bad,
Yeah.
really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that you're not alone. There's always people around you that can support and help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most important, first stepping stone is always acknowledging that we are not perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and we can get help.
Mm-hmm. So I think going back to that as well. So there's a question over here that we have. Um, is it actually possible for us to have high productivity even when feeling down or being at the rock bottom? Just like what you mentioned, feeling like this is the end of the world. Even so, can we actually perform well in our work?
Well, it depends.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like 100% certainty that a person is definitely going to not perform when their emotion is in the dump.
Mm-hmm.
Because some individuals that are going through grief, like they personally recently lost someone or something important,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they can use that energy, that grief, and then channel it into their work, fully dedicating, putting in the
Yeah.
hours, the focus itself, as a form of distraction.
Yeah.
It may not be healthy, but probably that's all the person has at that moment, and that is all they know.
Yeah. Actually, can we talk on that? As you mentioned, it's not healthy. People tend to say that, like, when you are going through a bad phase of your life, some people use it as a driving force and they put it into their work. They tend to bury themselves in work rather than addressing the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And just like what you mentioned, it's unhealthy. So, what is the tips, or how do you advise them, and what are they supposed to do?
Well, a person that's going through that really depends on how they want to resolve or overcome the situation. Like, it's not necessarily bad because everyone goes through loss, goes through the pain, the grief that comes with it.
Mm.
Okay, and if they want to channel it into something that's important to them, be it work or other aspect of their life, that particular part that they're channeling the energy into being productive will benefit a lot.
Yeah.
It would help them grow, because a individual like that, okay, we might be able to say that they are very practical. They do not want to waste their time wallowing and wasting
Yeah.
away. Instead, they use that to help themselves grow in other aspects.
Mm.
Well, not healthy in the sense that for personal front, their emotions they are trying to bury,
Yeah.
to like ignore for the time being, because it's too overwhelming, it's too painful. But sometimes precisely because of that, the more that sharing helps.
Mm.
When it's very fresh, just having someone around you to lean on, to share time with, not necessarily to talk, but just knowing that there's someone to be with can be tremendous support emotionally and mentally. Knowing that you're not going through this alone. Like for individuals that lost a loved one, they can spend time with other family members to grieve together. Okay, having lost an opportunity, they can share to their parents or their siblings that say, "Oh, I lost this opportunity to go overseas or to get promoted." For example, can feel that someone else is there to understand and comfort follows.
So seeking for comfort is the key. And would you agree that the seeking for comfort, it doesn't have to be done immediately? Can it be acquired later on,
Mm.
after burying themselves, and then eventually, the spark comes in and, like, yes, okay, now I need to go and unpack these feelings.
Yeah, of course, it can be postponed.
Mm.
When a person is ready to deal with certain things that, as adults, as individuals, we have all the right to choose for ourselves when we want to deal with emotions or certain things that we are going through. But then again, human nature is that when we can ignore and not address difficult situations or difficulties in our life,
Yeah.
we will put it off as long as possible. Okay, and therefore, having the build up of little boxes in the corner.
Yeah. Okay, so does that mean the idea is that to ensure you can have those little boxes, but it's just that ensure you unpack it after a certain time so that you can put more little boxes, there's more spaces, rather than you overwhelm the room. Huh?
Spring clean once a year
Okay, yes.
or every month.
So the spring cleaning part, that's where talking to your friends, your loved ones, or professionals. Is that so?
Or maybe if the person is an expat, maybe they don't have anyone that close to them, is near them, accessible to them, and they don't really like to talk or communicate virtually. They can actually do their own journaling, which can be really helpful to understand and unpack on their own. That can help as well.
All right. Okay, so I think we have a few questions more onto, like, what has been happening and what's your take on this, or your opinion or your advice. So basically, we got this question from a manager. His staff took MC, and the reason for it was because he argued with his girlfriend and he could not come over to work. So however, the manager felt like this particular reason is unacceptable. So what is your opinion or advice to the manager?
Did he approve the leave?
That is something that we do not know. Yeah.
Okay. This is definitely interesting, and this is something that occurs actually quite a lot
I
these days.
Mhm.
Okay, as more and more people become aware and acknowledge the deeper part of themselves, the emotions, the mental well-being, people are more careful to protect themselves. And when they're affected emotionally, whether from stress, from work, from different sources, for example, in this case, relationship, argument with their loved ones, girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Then they will feel really down. They want to care and cater the attention to their emotions. Let that recover, then only focus on career and on a job in this specific situation.
So people tend to think whenever we hear this kind of situation, people tend to think, oh, this guy is probably so weak, just because you fought with your girlfriend, you're unable to come for work, you can't do your job, and there's other things that people may be waiting for your work and things like that. So what do you think about that?
That's where the professional front and the personal front comes to play.
Mm.
There's really many sides to this depending on how a person wants to understand and empathize with the person. Which person? Is it the manager, the company, or is it the person that is in pain? Okay, because when they refuse to show up at work, when they're caring for their personal emotion, okay, if you are standing from the employee's point of view, it is good that they're giving themselves time to recover, to heal, and to prioritize. Of course, it's unprofessional because they are not being responsible for their work and their commitment on the other side. But then again, they're actually being responsible for themselves. So this, on the other hand, really depends on the employee. What is their priority? Is it the relationship or is it their career? Okay, but if let's say they choose the relationship being the priority or even they themselves, then it is really unfortunate for the company and the manager, because then they will have to deal with the work, the role that is left out by the employee. They have to do more work. Maybe the colleagues have to do more work. Okay, maybe it's short term, then it's fortunate, but what if it's long term? The vacancy is there, so everyone have to pick up the slack. So that's unfortunate for them. Okay, and people would feel that that's irresponsible, that's unprofessional. Okay, and of course a lot of companies or managers would not be able to tolerate that. Okay, but then if you really think about it, would you or the company wants a person into work that can't produce, that can't focus? What if their role is really important? What if any smallest mistake would cost a bunch of money, millions, billions? What if it causes lives? So a person that can't focus, that is affected emotionally from relationship, sometimes it makes sense for a company to give them the day off or maybe even the week off, depending on the severity of the issue. Okay, what if they're gonna break up? What if it is a 10, 20 years relationship? What if they have kids and all? So it can be really major for the person and it can affect them really long. That's why it makes sense for a company to let a person off, but of course with certain precaution for the future if let's say it happens again. Of course, if let's say the person knowingly that they have this sort of tendency being affected for very long, companies or managers can prepare interventions or prepare plan B or plan C's, have other people that are able to do their job as well. Have other teams on standby, have individuals on hand that is able to replace, to pick up the slack for the time being of the vacancy.
Yeah. Okay, and then one more would be between a couple, right? Husband and wife. So the wife, she confronted her husband and asked him to have more initiative and improve himself so that he's able to play a role in the family income, instead of just lacking watching movie at home. And the side effect of this particular conflict or this particular conversation with the husband result in her not focusing or unable to focus at work and kept worrying about their future as a family. And for this, what is your advice to both? Let's talk about to the husband as well as to the wife.
I'm not really clear about the context. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear is that the wife is confronting the husband because he's a bit slacking and wants him to be able to commit more, to take initiative, right? And that affects her because She's worrying about the families,
Yes, she's worrying about the family.
future,
Yeah. And
and the husband.
how she is the only one that's putting in more effort compared to the husband, and when she confront,
Mm,
and then it doesn't result well.
mhm,
So basically she is the one that's putting in more,
mhm,
and the other party is not. That's
mm,
the worry part.
mm,
And that's where it leads to the unable to focus at work comes in.
mm.
Mm.
Well, we will go directly to the source, to the root of the issue.
Mhm.
Okay, affecting job performance, affecting her career. That's the surface.
Mhm.
If we find a way to overcome that, there
Mhm.
will be other problems that arise because the root cause is not addressed.
Okay.
Okay, so root cause right now is probably the unfairness that she feels,
Yeah.
probably the worrying, the anxiety of like how this relationship gonna develop,
Mhm.
and then the responsibility and like how the family is gonna grow moving forward.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be really neutral with this by not taking both sides.
Mhm.
Okay, because from experience itself, that may not be the whole story.
Mhm.
Okay, we have to actually listen to both husband and wife's perspective
Yeah.
to really understand what they're going through and to know how they actually perceive situation and how they handle situations.
Mhm.
Okay, in this type of context, it will be good for husband and wife to actually seek out support because there's no like perfect situation. At one point, the wife is worrying a lot,
Mhm.
wants to take action,
Mhm.
committing to the relationship,
Mhm.
right? Now, and the husband is not really committing as much. When it is put like that,
Mhm.
people will usually feel that, oh, what a irresponsible or useless spouse.
Yeah.
And then poor spouse, the other side that is putting in so much hard work into the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's not fair at all.
Mhm.
If you come from the husband's perspective, if let's say the situation is not as dire or bad as it seems, the extra attention or extra work may actually harm the relationship and the
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
And the husband may be at a position that is more stable, clear-minded,
Mhm.
and peace. Okay,
Mhm.
and the extra attention, the pressure from the wife may be causing the family more harm than
Mhm.
him not contributing effort.
Mhm. Mhm.
So let me help with a example.
Yeah.
Okay, let's imagine that there is a plant,
Mhm.
a seed
Mhm.
in the middle.
Mhm.
The seed is a relationship, and then
Mhm.
there's two farmers,
Yeah.
two gardeners on both sides, left and right.
Mhm.
The seed is in the middle.
Mhm.
So when they shower the
Mhm.
seed with water,
Mhm.
the seed slowly blossoms and grows
Mhm.
into a plant,
Mhm.
into a tree. So the tree would actually go straight up
Mm.
if healthily, and
Mhm.
then with the gardener on both sides.
Mhm.
So imagine this scenario. If let's say one gardener
Mhm.
waters 2 times a day
Yeah.
or 3 times a day, and then the other gardener doesn't do anything at all,
Mhm.
just like sit down. So the plant will still grow, but then it
Mhm.
won't grow straight because then one side is like not balanced, so it
Yeah.
will like slant one side.
Yeah.
Okay, because one side is weaker, the other side is
Yeah.
stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, for example,
Yeah.
then the relationship, the plant won't grow healthily.
Mhm.
There will bound to be conflicts and problem.
Mhm.
Okay, now this is scenario A. Scenario B
Mhm.
is that if one side waters 3 times a day,
Mhm.
but the other side waters maybe just 1 time.
Mm.
I'm tempted to say 30 times. Okay, but just like keep it simple, 1 time
Yeah.
versus 3 times.
Yeah.
Actually, the plant doesn't need that much water.
Yeah.
Okay, it just need 1 time a day. So watering 1 time is just nice, just enough.
Okay.
Maybe watering 3 times is too much.
Mm. Mm.
So the plant will still like grow in a
Mm.
weird way lah.
Mm.
Okay, still not really straight up, maybe a bit unbalanced.
Mhm.
Okay, because one side is committing more, one side committing less.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean that any side is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a commitment and own preference.
Mhm.
So the ideal situation maybe is situation C, scenario C, whereby both
1-to-1.
communicate, decide that we will both only water the plant once a day
Yeah.
for the plant to really grow up straight, for the relationship to really progress smoothly and grow nicely.
Mhm.
So it all falls back to communication,
Mm.
managing expectation, and having the same perception,
Yeah.
giving just the right amount.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
If one side decides to give, it has to be of course, the best scenario would be unconditional lah.
Mm-hmm.
If a person can achieve that in their relationship, then usually they will have less hurt
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing it out of their own,
Yeah.
unconditionally.
Mm-hmm. I love the plant analogy over here. All right. I think there's one more. So I think going back to the work setting.
Mhm.
So even though we say the ideal situation, or just now we talked about the peak, which is to reach the professional and also the personal, right? To identify how can we differentiate that. But I do believe that there will be time that you tend to have it at the gray area. So the situation that I would like to talk about is maybe in a way that the as a boss or as a leader, so tend to have maybe had an issue with family, whatever it is, between the wife or the family, the kids, and then he or she brought it to work and lash it out to the employees or to the close people at work, uh, with the mindset that they would understand why did the particular manager lashed out. Is what do you think about that situation? Is that healthy, or how can they actually portray their emotion, or if they did not know that they actually hurt the employees' emotions or feelings, how can they recover?
Mm. Well, in the very first place, did the employees or the team consented to allowing the lash
Mm-hmm.
out?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we will try to make sense, as the person that cares for the person that's hurting, we will try to
Yeah.
understand and empathize with the situation, trying to make sense why the person is, being more groggy or being very, demanding or being really loud.
Yeah.
But then again, lashing out is not right.
Mm.
Okay, a person, a manager,
Yeah.
needs to be able to work together with the team to help reach a common goal. When a person is too emotional, it may not reflect well, and the whole team may follow the leader, or they may not follow at all. Okay, will not listen to the leader's instructions
Mm.
or certain work delegation. That would
Mm.
be the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to lose respect for the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And lashing out, having uncontrolled emotions is always bad in work settings and even at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, because what if it is the other way around? What
Yeah.
if they have it bad at work and then they bring the emotion back and then lash out at the kids and the wife?
Yeah.
So, all like research or maybe even movies shows that children growing up from parents that are very emotional, that
Yeah.
always use them to vent out their anger, have a lot of their own issues growing up as well, to mainly revolve around anger and making friends.
Mm-hmm.
So in the office, yes, everyone is adult that would try to empathize, sympathize. But moving forward, if it is continued, the behavior is continued, then the team wouldn't be a very nice team to work at. And when that notion is acknowledged by any individual, they will leave. And that would be a loss for the team and the company. So managers or supervisors that has a team need to be able to hold personal front and professional front delicately. Of course, sometimes they can't really, when emotions is really there, it comes.
Yeah.
When it's too much. So before it gets too much, when it's just a little, start acknowledging it and then addressing it and process it before it becomes too much to handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Moving on. So let's talk about the family, right?
Mhm.
So as a family, how can the family play a role in supporting the breadwinner of the family to have high performance at work or to be able to excel at work?
Breadwinner.
Yeah.
Traditional sense would be that one person is working and then the other one is a stay home,
Yeah.
either mom or dad.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so have to understand their roles
Mm-hmm.
in the family.
Mm-hmm.
If they are taking care of the family members,
Mm-hmm.
chores, tasks, responsibility needs to be made clear. Okay, of course, the other can help the other. Like
Okay.
breadwinner can help the one at home, and then
Yeah.
of course the one that stay home can help support, vice versa. So they have to make their roles really clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they can go for courses, they can get external help from professionals to discuss everything to make it really clear, so that it reduces conflict. Everyone knows everyone's own responsibility. And of course, when reduce conflict, then everyone will have a better mental well-being. But if not, then communication needs to at least be there to talk it out, to voice out the concern so that no hard feelings is kept buried and grow into something ugly.
And over here we spoke about between the couple, right? How about between, let's just say now modernized, right? In the modern world, most of the time, both the mom and dad are usually working. So how can the parents and the kids, how can they help each other?
This requires education. No one is perfect. No one is born perfect. Takes time to learn. But where does the knowledge come from? They can learn it from trial and error, from experience. And of course, there can be courses or workshop that helps them pick up the knowledge. So parents, family, like the adults, they need to be responsible to look out for any available workshop or source of knowledge. They can go Google, YouTube, any sources work to at least start somewhere. Maybe their information may not be like pinpoint 100% right, but at least you're starting. When you get certain information from different sources, you can compare and choose what is the right amount for your family, the right recipe for your family. So both parents can look out for the information and invite along the children to be part of it so that they are actually a unit. Okay, you want your family member to be able to be your pillars and not your obstacles, to be on the same channel, to know what you know. Just you knowing may not be sufficient because sometimes when a person is fatigued, they may not be able to practice everything that they know. They may not be able to apply it. So it helps when your team member, when your family member can support as well. When you're on the same page, you have the same game plan, then you'll be able to support one another, to know, to understand, to comprehend, and then to empathize with one another. Because sometimes life can be very unpredictable. It can be very difficult. Life is difficult, especially for those growing through tough situations. Okay, that is placed right in front of them. They have no way to avoid it. So if, let's say, family is ultimately the priority for husband and wife, if you feel that your relationship is important to you long term, not something short term, if let's say you know that, oh, this partner is not long term, it's just going to be short term, focus on your career. Why give up something that you put so much effort into for something that you know is not going to last? Not practical, not logical. Okay, this part I'm only addressing the practicality. I'm not addressing the emotional part. Of course, there will be a lot of pain. Okay, with the quality time spent together, the person is special. If not, you would not have gotten together. Okay, in the first place. So something along the way might not have worked out. Certain friction that's too hard to brush smooth. So unfortunately, if you know that it's not something permanent or something not long term at all, you have already made the decision. It is really clear in your mind. Focus something that's long term. Career you have studied for, you have interviewed, you have continued working for a number of years. Focus on the career. But if husband and wife knows that this is permanent, my relationship is permanent, my marriage, my kids is important for me, my commitment to the relationship is important. First step is that one, acknowledging it, knowing that whatever that you're facing right now is the problem. Acknowledge the problem. Second step, find solutions to deal with the problem. Go for workshops together. If let's say the problem is kids, in-laws, finance, whichever it is, go for the right causes, learn it together, practice together, because ultimately you are a team. Support one another, and basically the relationship will be smoother.
Yeah. All right. I think we are at the very last part, which would be an advice from you. It could be an advice or a life hack that you could share with any couple out there to let them know how can they deal with relationship issues that could that to ensure it doesn't affect both of their work performance.
Life hack for
To overcome any relationship issues between two of them in the relationship, in order for it to not affect their professional. So in a sentence, right, like what you mentioned, how can the couple, both of them, able to manage their personal front and their professional front
Together.
Yeah.
Really good question. Support one another by giving space. When emotions is running high, people may say harsh things to each other. So before it get to that, and a person may say something irreversible, okay, maybe the other person can be very compassionate and understand and forgive. But if it is said, sometimes it can't be taken back. What's broken may not be able to be mended.
Yeah.
Okay, so before it gets to that, allow each other safety, security, a space to retreat to. Okay, couples would can learn to know each other's limit. Don't push each other off the edge. Doesn't help your relationship, may make you feel good winning for that moment, but is winning the argument really that important as to protecting your relationship that you have worked so hard for so long, hurting the person that you care for, so don't push anyone off the edge. Know that when they are trapped, when they're cornered, give them the space to retreat, to heal, to rest. Support one another that way, and it will definitely help them a lot more. Because when you feel safe in your relationship, when you feel that the other person you can trust is not trying to hurt you, but you are just having a conflict at the moment that both of you are going to work together to resolve, well, usually that itself would help the person feel safe, feel confident, and it wouldn't, overspill to other aspects of their life.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. I guess that will be the end of our podcast today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tuli. It has been a really rewarding and meaningful session as well.
Thank you.
And then I hope it is the same for all the listeners.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.